in today's world, everything is unique and personalized to such an extent that the interior finishes are different and unique. And we say, if you would like this, when you're building a zero edge or vanishing edge type of pool that's very artistic, would you want to have something that detracts from that artistry, or would you like something that would enhance it?
Welcome to Luxury Outdoor Living Podcast with Mike
and Trey Farley
of Farley Pool Designs. For over 40 years, we've helped homeowners turn their backyards into personal retreats. And that's why after decades of designing and teaching in this industry, we're here to share our knowledge, helping you navigate the process with confidence.
Every week we break down design, trends, and insider tips that turn your vision into reality. We'd love to have you along for the ride.
Let's build your paradise together. Good afternoon. This is Mike Farley with Luxury Outdoor Living Podcast, and we have a great guest on with us this afternoon, someone that's been in the industry a long time and is going to give us a lot of wisdom and just a few things about him. So he started in his own family's pool business when he was 5 years old. He started cleaning his own cleaning pool business when he was 16, and then eventually launched Creative Environments, which is a really cool name for a pool company, but kind of trends now, but this was named years ago. Anyway, Chuck, we really look forward to talking with you. Why don't you give some people some brief information about where you're at and, you know, what exactly y'all do?
Thank you very much for asking, and I'm happy to share a lot of great ideas and stories today. I'm in Northern California, just east of San Francisco and Oakland, in a little community, Contra Costa County. We're just south of a town, Walnut Creek, and just north of another town, Danville. The town we live in for the last 50 years is called Alamo.
Okay.
It is in really the heart of the East Bay area insofar as an upscale community, wonderful weather, perfect for swimming pool conditions for both building and owning a swimming pool.
Well, and I know your family's got a lot of history. We'll dive into a little of that in a little bit. But the first thing I want to ask is, I heard there's a really cool story about a lighter. Can you tell me the story about the lighter?
That is a great story. So bear with me if it seems a little bit long, but at the same time, it bears repeating. Back in the 50s, when my dad started his pool company, 1955, and he became successful building custom swimming pools, he decided that there was a way to promote his business and advertise. Back in those days, a lot of people smoked, so it was not uncommon to have a pack of cigarette matches, not cigarettes, but matches with your name on it for advertisement. And if you were really upscaled, you would have a cigarette lighter with your logo and name and phone number and so forth. And so my dad had a bunch of these made up, and as he would build a swimming pool for somebody, he would give them out as a nice gesture because his clients most likely had smoked too. And so a few years back, I always remembered this lighter as a kid, and a few years back, I happened to get a call from a girlfriend of mine that I grew up with since grammar school. And she goes, "My God, have you been on this historical Facebook page lately?" And I said, "No, I haven't." She goes, "You got to stop what you're doing. Go open it up and take a look." And so I open it up, and here's this dialogue going back and forth with people in the community trying to decipher about this cigarette lighter that this gentleman had a picture of. And it was tarnished. It had been weathered. And it turns out that it was on a property that my dad had built a swimming pool for. This fella's parents had bought the property. He is about my age. 10 years ago, he finds the cigarette lighter that was one of my dad's cigarette lighters that he had given to this particular customer on this property. And it was a big property. It was a couple acre property. He was out rototilling. The current homeowner was rototills up this cigarette lighter that had been buried. He looks at it.
Oh, wow.
And goes, this is awfully interesting. He takes and puts it on a stone wall on the property, forgets it for 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
10 years, he decides, and of course, now all of a sudden we come along and here is, social media, and let me post this and see what kind of story it'll generate. As I open it up, I'm reading all of these different stories, and people are commenting, well, it must have been a pool builder way back when, and this, that, and the other. And I get on there and I go, oh my God. This is my dad's cigarette lighter. He was a pool builder out of Lafayette. He did this, he did that. He gave these away. I'm amazed that you have one. I haven't seen one of these things in 50, 60 years. So with that, I get to know this guy. And I said, where is it that you're located? Because I would love to come up and see the cigarette lighter. With that, he gives me his address. Turns out he's half a mile away from where I live currently right now.
Wow.
What were the odds of that? And he tells the story of how he left it on this rock wall. He picked it up. He said, I'm going to post it, see what happened. Well, he ends up giving the lighter to me. And I, in turn, give him a very nice bottle of wine out of appreciation. And I took the lighter and I started studying the lighter, and there's a much deeper story of the lighter because it has a free form, kind of an artistic artist palette pool design on it. Turns out that design was inspired by the Donnell Ranch pool, which was a pool that was significant in the swimming pool industry here in Northern California.
Oh, the world.
Exemplifying what owning a swimming pool and the California lifestyle, outdoor lifestyle, was all about. And I looked at that and I started doing some research on that particular pool. Happened to have caught a podcast that interacted with it, and it forced me to want to go and find out more about where this Donnell Ranch pool was. I had no idea, so I did a Google Earth. I looked at pictures that showed mountainscapes and so forth in the background, and I'll be damned if I didn't find it with going on Google Earth, and I zeroed in on it. That then caused me to want to contact the people, the Donnell family, and ask them if I could actually go up and see the property.
Wow.
With that, I ended up, they were so gracious and so inviting, and I took my son, who's the third generation of our family, to build pools, and I took a designer friend of mine who was designing a job that the landscape architect that designed this Donnell Ranch pool. I brought him along too. And so we spent the day with the Donnell family, walked the property. I had the cigarette lighter tucked away in my pocket, and I positioned them in just the right place with my back to the pool. And I started telling them the story of the cigarette lighter, and I pulled it out of my pocket and I showed it to them and basically said, isn't this your pool? And they were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. So here's this history. One more part of this story is this pool was built by Paddock of Northern California.
Right.
Paddock Pools was the premier pools in the 40s and 50s. They were the guy. And my dad ended up owning a paddock dealership in our little town in Lafayette. So he was influenced by that particular pool, put it on a cigarette lighter. I had no idea until I found the cigarette lighter from this individual, and I have it in my drawer right now, and it's one of those novelties that tells a great story with it.
Oh yeah. So I have admired Thomas Church, the designer of that project, all my career. That pool was built in 1948,
Yep.
and it changed the pool industry from, everything being a total rectangle and formal in
Yeah.
design. It was the classic first freeform pool. And I know Sunset Magazine did lots of articles on that pool over the years because it's right down the road from them and the location of all that. So anyway, that's an amazing story. And I love Thomas Church was my design mentor from a design style standpoint. The fact that you design based on the home, you design based on the architecture, and you design based on the home, the site, and what the client wants. And with all those things, you're going to come up with a unique design every time. And so that's the fun of my career in a nutshell. But yeah, that's amazing, the story that you've got. So
To be in that presence was
amazing.
It was absolutely amazing. And we walked the yard. We got a great tour of the house. It was mid-century architecture. It was built, they started building the house right after World War II. And that pool was so instrumental to taking the pool industry and putting it on the map insofar as outdoor California lifestyle. The war was over. We were in post-war era, and success was starting with the country, and people related to that Thomas Church pool as the signature pool for the California lifestyle.
Yeah.
And they have, what was interesting, fun part of the story, they have an art object that looks like it's floating in the pool, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah. The sculpture. Yeah.
Sculpture. And it's almost like a lounge chair, but it has portholes on it, both under the water and coming up through the water onto the lounge. And it's just close enough to the edge of the pool that a younger person, not someone my age, but a younger person could take that leap and jump onto it. And of course, at the time, Nico was, I think, 29 years old. He jumps onto it and he sits there. He's glowing like, I just climbed Mount Everest or something. And he says, "Come on, Dad, just jump on it." And I thought for a moment, and then the better sense of me said, this could be that moment that you live to regret for the rest of your life. And I said, "No, son, you bask in the glory. This is a perfect, let me get some pictures of you on it." And then he jumped back, and it was a fun moment. That
great.
Pool, just to make reference to that pool, 70 years later, because it was 70 years when we looked at it, that pool was flawless. I mean, not a crack in it, not out of level. The decks were as perfect as they could be. 70 years. It's unheard of in the pool industry because things were mass produced after that. And here is this with one skimmer on it surrounded by oak trees. It was gorgeous.
So one thing, doing a Google search today,
yeah,
I pulled up Dwell magazine was rehashing their top iconic articles that they had over the last 25 years. And they posted that pool 4 days ago as one of the most iconic articles they ever wrote for their magazine. And one of the things they put in that article, which I thought was interesting, is if you opened Encyclopedia Britannica
Yeah.
and looked up the definition of landscape architecture, there was a picture of that pool in the encyclopedia representing what landscape architecture meant to people, 25 years ago. Anyway, so amazing place. So.
And still does. That's the when you perform artwork in people's backyards, and what pool builders today are doing is really a piece of art that's being sculptured and designed. The architecture of it's not about the pool as it was in my dad's era. That took center stage. The rest of the yard was filled with concrete for functionality, but nothing really exemplified and complemented the rest of the architecture of the yard. Thomas's church design did. There was textures, there was windows where you could look through trees and pick up long range. You could see San Francisco from that backyard. To be able to be in that presence and enjoy that moment with the clients that were so gracious, still the original owner. It is the daughter that her and her husband that now own the property, right. But it's 4,000 acres. I mean, it is unbelievable. And it's just as pristine and perfect today as it was when they built it. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey Chuck, I'm gonna go in a different direction. That is awesome. I'm wondering because one of our primary audience base is gonna be the homeowners that's going through the process right now, and I'm wondering what's your opinion if someone's dreaming of a luxury pool today, and what's the single most important thing that they need to get right?
I don't know that there's something that you could say, what is the single most important? I think it's a collection of a very complete process. So if you were to short circuit that process and say, I'm going to go straight to B or Z or whatever, that's the most important. I don't think that's the proper way to approach it. I'm going to take a step back just a little bit in some of the earlier designs that my dad did and that I did and where we are today in design. When I started creative environments, I realized that it isn't about just the pool. It's about the entertainment and enjoyment of the backyard, that the pool happens to be one of the cast and crew of this wonderful play that's going on in the backyard. So if somebody is planning to build a pool in their backyard, probably one of the first things I would say is make sure that you have a very complete design that interacts with you and your interest and your needs and wants and your family usage, because that's the first step of the journey, is to have a nice comprehensive set of plans that tell the story before you really start making the investment. When my dad was building swimming pools, his average pool was $2,000 start to finish. That was everything thrown in there between the gunite and the steel and the plumbing and the tile and the plaster, the whole pool. Our average pools are $250,000 and up. So you do not want to make a mistake, rush in and say, I got to hurry up and get this pool. I want to get it right, but boy, I got to get it tomorrow. You really need to do your homework and research. The clients that come to me at different parts of the year, the ones that come in the dead of winter, are probably my best clients because they do the most homework, the most research. They understand it's a journey, not a destination. And so once you've got a good, comprehensive set of plans, you now, as a homeowner, are in control of the journey. And you now get to go out and select all the team players that you want to bring in to conduct this play in your backyard. And you want to choose them based on their merits, longevity of business, Price is a factor. It's always going to be a factor, but it shouldn't be the number one reason. I chose this guy because he was the cheapest guy out there. You want to choose somebody that has integrity, and there's a lot of good builders in the industry right now.
Oh yeah.
So does that answer your question?
No, it 100% does. Yeah, having the right design, that's your starting point. Yeah, it's your North Star. That's probably why a lot of design firms are thriving now. That wasn't probably a thing back in the day, just designing pools by itself. But that's a thing now. I'm wondering if you would have to say, there's homeowners out there and they're trying to figure out, if the right design for them, because they might think it's perfect, but maybe it's not buildable. Are there any like tell signs to understand, okay, this design seems to be a really good one?
I have a client right now that is up in our community, and he ended up hiring a designer from another market.
Okay.
And that market was more in the Southern California market. And the design, as gorgeous as it was, is not as relevant and as practical and
Mm,
achieving the goals that this homeowner wanted. To give you an example, it was probably $1 million design of a pool, and he's got a young family. The pool construction is just one part of it. I would have loved to have shown him more and said, here's more of a direction, but he'd already made his big commitment with this designer. And so because of that, he felt he was on the road to that journey. I didn't want to discourage him, but the cost will probably end up discouraging them at the end of the day. I think it's important when you hire a designer to go in with the understanding of what is a realistic budget. If you're going to go build a house, you hire an architect to design that house with you, and you kind of have a rough idea of what that budget parameter is going to be before you make the full commitment and start going forward. And sometimes I see clients that get led by a designer or architect that may not necessarily have to relate to cost parameters. He's more involved or she's more involved in the end picture of what it looks like. And they sell that concept, but then the client goes out and tries to choose a team, put their team together, and they realize that this is way over budget. When I meet somebody, I do direct them towards the designers we work with, but I also talk about what's a realistic budget. And once we get past that point, there's a lot of trust factor that goes on, and we end up getting most of the work we go after.
yeah. I think that's probably one of the biggest, trickiest things when you're working with someone that just designs, because if they don't have the ability to actually bid it with the numbers that they would use, um, it can get tricky because they could say, "Oh, it's only 500,000," and it actually be north of 1,000,000. So,
You- there's also another part of this that I think is really important that the industry is starting to see. When I started 46 years ago, there wasn't anybody in the industry that really cared about the rest of the yard. It was all the pool. That's my dog in the fight. That's all I cared about. And I didn't care how you finished the decks or elevations or anything. And I looked at it more as a puzzle that needed to get put together and solved properly. And part of that puzzle is having a really good comprehensive design that has balance and proportion in the pool and in the yard. So as you travel through the yard for entertaining, it takes all of those thoughts in mind as you go to design it. The designer needs to work very closely with pool contractors to then get a very good sense of what the costs are so he doesn't oversell a design that's $1 million when the budget was 500.
Yeah. We deal with that from a I mean, I got off the phone with somebody an hour ago with that same exact conversation, and
Yeah.
they hired somebody. And the challenge is, I think the advice for a homeowner to give here is if someone can't, and the big thing on this particular job was they designed the yard as it was flat, and there was an 8-foot elevation change in the backyard. It was a pretty design. It's lovely how they designed it, but the thing is, it's not buildable because of the grades that are on the property. But this designer never walked on the property. Actually, they were sent a survey that had site elevations on it, so the homeowner assumed that he did that. But I was like, well, and he quickly understood that they didn't when we looked at it. But yeah, it's always hard. But I 100% agree. The first thing in my design process is we talk about what they want, and then I develop a shopping list and say, here's all the things that you wanted, and here's the price point for all of them. Do you still want to consider the project with all these things? And almost every client's like, no, I don't want to spend that much money. Well, then we might need to take that acrylic window out of play, or we may need to take the perimeter overflow pool out, or, some things that have really are spectacular features, but have spectacular price tags attached to them as well. So anyway, yeah, great information for someone to literally, and the challenge is most homeowners can't generate the budget. The pool professional needs to generate the budget for them based on what they want, because the homeowner doesn't know what all those things cost. So anyway.
Now it's an important part of the process. In the old days, the process used to be you had a box full of templates and a sheet of paper, and you went out and you sketched the back of the house. The salesman would measure it up, and he'd take one of the templates and draw it in, and that was the sum total of the pool. And they knew exactly what that template was because it cost the same for everybody that they built that same template on.
Yep. The cardboard template. Yeah. I remember that box.
In today's world, everything is unique and personalized to such an extent that the interior finishes are different and unique. The tiles are different and unique. The coping materials, the deck shapes. We have never, in the 1,500 pools that I've designed and built, we've never built two that were the same.
Yeah.
Because the people are uniquely different and they want to have something that's personalized. If you specialize and go in that direction, you win a lot of clients over because of that.
I'm wondering, are there any mistakes that homeowners have made often throughout your career when they're starting a backyard project? Maybe not mistakes, but misconceptions they come into the process with already?
They don't have all of their ducks in a row.
Okay.
They kind of go into it with, well, I'm going to spend $200,000 and build a swimming pool, and that's fine. But then they have other peripheral work that they would like to do, be it repairing the landscape, putting it back together, putting fences on the yard, concrete work. And they don't look at all the incidentals that come into play, and then they're not prepared to support those incidentals when they do come in, so that their total sum budget might be $200,000, but the reality is the swimming pool is going to cost them $180,000, and there's $20,000 left on the table to do the decking, or I want to put in a fire pit, and I want to put in a barbecue and do all these other creature comfort features without understanding. And that's truly, that is, in my opinion, that's the pool builder's responsibility. He's a professional. He's doing this day in and day out. And when you take a client down the road, you hold their hand and you walk them through the process. Because I do this on every client that I meet. I walk them through the process. And once we get to the other side, if we've accomplished all that they wanted to hear about it, now we're starting to move forward to actually go in and build it and work with their budget parameters.
So I'm just curious, like you said, 46 years ago, when you were starting out. So you guys were starting in the late 70s, if I do my math correctly.
1999, yeah.
So how did you come up with this concept? I mean, I know how I started, it was partly because of my training as a landscape architect, that I just wanted to work with pools. And so I kind of treated it as such, but how did you come up with your process that you were looking at the whole picture instead of just the pool itself?
But part of it, I think, is evolution, and part of it is being a forward thinker. I have been blessed in being in a particular market here in the swimming pool industry here in Northern California, here in Contra Costa County, of seeing some of the very, very first things that have ever come along in our industry were invented, created right around me in the Bay Area here. And so that influence causes you to be more of a forward thinker instead of doing things as it had been done before and before that.
Right.
You're constantly looking over the next horizon as you climb to the top of that mountain, and you experiment with something new other than what has been done in the past. You start learning, hey, this works really well. And you also realize, and I'll throw out a name here, Vance Gillette, who's been a long, long time friend of mine who passed last year. Vance and I used to sit and we'd talk an awful lot about, it's more about the experience of being in the backyard with a swimming pool back there than it is about, this only costs X amount or it has just a standard look to it. It was more of the rest of the yard and the entertainment, the lighting. I had years ago, I had one of the editors of the magazine ask me, Chuck, do you have a pool? And that's kind of in the industry, yeah, right. The guy builds pools, but he doesn't have a pool. Well, I have a fantastic pool. I mean, it's like something out of the south of France. Or we built a 17th century French country home, and you walk in the backyard, and it is beautiful. And the question that was asked of me is, well, how often do you use your pool? And I said, I use my pool every single day. And of course, they're thinking, well, he's out there in the middle of winter swimming laps. I have probably 25 LED lights on my pool. Every night, my pool lights up and shows off in the backyard to anybody that comes over to our house. Every morning when I get up and have a cup of coffee and look out the kitchen window and I see the vanishing edge roll over to where you look beyond into the rest of the landscape in my yard. If I go out and I'm playing with our dogs, just being out in the backyard around the swimming pool, I'm using it every single day. It's not necessarily about swimming laps every day.
Yeah, I think Vance Gillette gave us that thought process, or maybe he got it from you. Anyway, and I follow that same philosophy, and I actually answer the question exactly the same way. Now, I do have dogs that actually do swim in it every single day. I've got some golden retrievers that think that I built the pool for them, and there's a towel rack in the backyard just for them. So
just to dry them off.
Yeah, you don't want to get the hairy towels from the wrong towel rack in the backyard.
They're gonna smell a little different.
They do smell a little different, yes. But yeah, Vance was very instrumental, I think, in making a lot of people in the pool industry think about the experience and the environment that we could create. And he was talking about these things long before most people were doing it. But I guess you and him talked earlier than me and him did.
We grew up basically in the same town. He's was a year older than I was. And
oh, wow.
Early on in the industry, when he went over and started working for Howard Arneson and
Yes.
Poolside, I had a retail store in Lafayette, and so that was the up and coming product that was created. Andy Pansini and Howard Arneson working together and creating this method in which you can clean a swimming pool so it doesn't become drudgery to you and pool ownership. And Vance was over there promoting sales of those cleaners, and we'd run across each other. And it has always been a very admirable relationship, and I miss him dearly because he was such a good soldier for our industry. He promoted so much and got us all on the right track of thinking about the swimming pool and what it does to enhance our lives.
It's a great place that, changes, and especially the environment as you described it, where, people, I think it was interesting that, it took COVID to drive a lot of people into the backyard and realize, wait, we can create a special place out here
Yeah.
that is good for our mental health as well as our physical health. And those things, I think are continuing to change the environments that we're blessed to create. So,
Amen. Amen.
You've mentioned it a couple times. So you're in the same area. You've had a long career in that same area. Can you tell me a little bit about how like the homeowners, like what they want versus like today versus like 30 years ago, how that has changed over time? Because obviously the pool industry has exploded.
I think that's a great question. Part of that is the interest. I think our clients have been very well educated, and I'm going to put this back on Vance to some extent, and that is that the ownership of having a swimming pool in the privacy of your backyard and developing your property to a high level that you can see a return on investment is an important part of people building a swimming pool. They have this wonderful water element in their backyard. It's changed their lifestyle. We saw an awful lot of this during the COVID years because things just exploded during COVID. People were bottled up in their homes, and I couldn't sell pools fast enough because of those conditions. They wanted to improve their property. We didn't have that type of interest back in the 50s and 60s. In the 60s, here in Northern California, we saw a lot of builders out of Southern California who had a lot of momentum going. I'll pick on Anthony Pools or Royal Pools, Blue Haven Pools. Those builders came up to Northern California and they settled around the Bay Area, starting to sell mass-produced swimming pools. You can have a pool for under $10,000 in your backyard. And that, for a while, had a lot of traction, and people were going after just that. But then they realized at about the time, 79, when I started my company, there was a handful of us in this graduating class, if you will. Dave Tischerman is a good example of that. Skip Phillips is a good example. Brian Van Bauer is a good example. Lou Akins, good example. That were in that graduating class that realized we could take and raise the bar up and create something really special and unique in people's backyards, and there was a market for it. So because of that, we started playing that tune and going in that direction. And I remember Buzz Giz. I sat down with Buzz one day. Buzz, of course, that had Paramount pools and cleaners and so forth. And and sat down with Buzz, and he had this great big business, paddock pool, excuse me. He had paddock pools there in Arizona. He had this great big business that was producing like 2,000 units a year. And I said, is it all being done in-house, or are you subcontracting it? And it got to the point where it was more beneficial to subcontract it. And he admitted that it's almost too much work. Yes, you create a lot of volume, but you can also create a lot of headaches for yourself. And I got to that fork in the road. Do I want to do more volume pools, or do I want to do more unique one-of-a-kind pools? And that one-of-a-kind pools is what created the next layers, if you will, that I built the foundation of our pool company on. I want to do unique, one-of-a-kind. We do 15 of these pools a year. It's not that we're overpriced or underpriced. It's just we give people things that they've never thought about, and I'm forever combing the industry every year to see what's new. Here's an interesting story, and I know Eric has heard this. The community I grew up in, when my dad was building, you got a pool. You never got a heater. You had the wedding cake stairs in the corner of a pool. You had a grab rail down at the deep end. A lot of the pools had a lily pad skimmer. It wasn't built into a little niche. All of a sudden, I grew up in this town, and I've been given a call to go out and do a repair in this particular neighborhood. And I walk in the backyard, and here's this little miniature pool that it's inside of a building. And I open it up and I look at it and I go, this is the oddest thing I've ever seen. It turns out it was a prototype for the very first spa or therapy pool that was ever created in my little town. I'm 16 years old.
Like a hot tub?
It's for the Jacuzzi family.
Oh, wow.
The Jacuzzi brothers. Yeah.
I grew up in this little town in Lafayette, and there was about 250 jacuzzis. They were all cousins. They were everywhere. And I went to school with these kids, and one of them had a therapy problem, and they designed a therapy jet that was a Venturi T, and the prototype, it didn't live back in the wall. It lived outside the wall that screwed into a flange fitting, and that was the jet with a little snorkel tube that came above the water.
Wow.
And my reason for diverting off into that story is that these different amenities, the automatic pool cleaners, multi-lights in a pool, surface skimmers built back away from a pool, therapy spa, putting big heaters on pools. These things, as time has evolved, have only enhanced the experience of having a swimming pool in your backyard.
100%.
People today, their visualization, I don't think this has ever changed, but the reality sets in after they buy the pool and they realize, oh my God, I got to put a heater on this thing and heat it. I thought it was always going to be 80 degrees, but their visualization is the water's always blue, it's spotless, there isn't a speck of dirt in the pool, and it's 80 degrees. And it's ready to go at any point in time. And in my market, we were also, my little town here in Alamo that I'm in was the very first town that caused the fence ordinance, which opened the doorway to automatic pool covers for pools. It was right here in my town.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't down the street or Southern California. It happened right in my little town in Alamo. Unfortunately, there's a sad story that goes with it that drives that, but it's like having seatbelts on a car. The first accidents didn't have seatbelts because nobody thought of it, and then somebody started to. So that being said, the whole evolution of a swimming pool from the earlier experiences when my dad was building a pool to the experiences today, it has grown immensely. The pool designs, there's so many different features: sheer fountains, vanishing edges, zero edges, putting a pool in a location that nobody would have ever thought of putting a pool in. We get to do all those things, provided you're a good student of your craft. That's an important part. It's one thing to say, I'm a glorified salesman, I go sell a swimming pool. It's another to know what it is that you're doing. And you get there by attending education classes, grouping with other like-minded people in our industry, studying. There's a lot of information that's out there to help people be a good, top-notch professional pool builder.
As the technology evolved and you're talking about these features getting better and better, is there any features that maybe some people might still use that you're like, why would you use that now that there's like other options out there? Is there anything that's like, oh, I don't use that anymore, and thank goodness I don't?
I think, to answer your question, there's always going to be somebody. I'll give you a good example. We use in-floor cleaning on all of our pools because it frees up the swimming pool without having an umbilical cord and a robotic cleaner in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Those are great units. But if you have an alternative for an in-floor cleaning system, it does have a price tag that comes along with it. And we give it a line item cost, and we say, if you would like this, when you're building a zero edge or a vanishing edge type of pool that's very artistic, would you want to have something that detracts from that artistry, or would you like something that would enhance it? And so part of it is the upsale, sure. Once you make it available, that's the either or sales scenario of Dale Carnegie. Would you like this, or would this be better for you? They're going to get one or the other now.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of how you direct them. I think the technology is constantly changing. The variable speed pumps, the energy efficiency, the electronics. We don't build a pool unless it has electronics on it that they can operate it with their smartphone. Every pool, it doesn't matter. It could be a basic pool with no spa or anything on it. I still put electronics on it because I think I'm doing justice to the client. If he's going to spend a couple $100,000 with me for a few $1,000s, why wouldn't I put that on his pool?
Yeah, I thought that was a standard like in today's age, but we heard a story about one of the, so we were not going to name names, but someone did build a pool and they didn't give them electronics. And I was like, what is this? They still do this?
Yeah.
And I tell this to people all the time. You're either going to get sold a pool or you're going to meet a builder that's going to build you a pool. It's an either or. And the sales end of it was because you had an aggressive salesman who wanted to get a bigger commission, so he's selling more to it. Or you have somebody like my son and I that lay it all out on the table and say, here's all the options of what you can have. What's on your Christmas list, right? What's your dream list? What is it that you would like to have? And we go with that, and then we start putting price tags on it. And when they get to the end and they go, God, that's a lot more than we wanted to spend, no problem. Let's take something off that list.
Yeah. Lou Akins did that very well in his class. I remember going to that when I was one of the very first pool shows that I went to.
Is that who you stole it from?
Yes, okay. I did.
Because he does implement it every time.
I'm a good thief. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I don't come up with any original ideas. I go find somebody else and I'm like, hey, that's smart. I'm going to do that. So yeah.
We all copy each other for inspiration. And I think that's an important part of the networking that's created amongst us as builders and designers and architects and business people. I belong to an organization, Carecraft, that we are constantly getting together and sharing ideas. And I tell the story, Lou Akins, if you remember Lou, who's now retired down in Mexico, but he and I were early young kids in this Carecraft group, and we'd sit down and we'd open up a beer and he'd break out a napkin and we'd start sketching up what a negative pool was, right? I go, what the hell is a negative edge pool? And he would draw it out for me and show me how the hydraulics worked and everything. And that would have never come about had I not been associated with a builder group that was dedicated to wanting to share and grow our industry. And I'm that way. I mentor to anybody that'll listen to me.
Yeah. So you are who you know and the information that they have. So I can go back. I mean, the best thing I ever did was in what year was it now? 98. I went to the International Pool Show and sat in a handful of classes, and they were taught by all the guys you rattled their names off earlier. And I was like, okay, this is what it takes to step up the game and learn to do things. And people today talk about, I could never design the things you design. And I said, you didn't see what I built and designed the first 7 years of my career. I mean, I didn't have the box of templates because I had a circle template, and I knew how to draw already. But I mean, we all built basic swimming pools. But I did have the opportunity to do a handful of projects when I first started that the people wanted me to design the arbor and design the patios and design the landscaping. And I was lucky because I was one of the only guys that did that in between Napa and Sacramento when I first started. So anyway, but when I left, the Jeremiahs were like, you'll never be able to do what you do here. And then I went to Texas, and 3 years later, they were like, wow, you're brilliant. I luckily landed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which has been one of the hottest spots growing in the country ever since. I mean, so I got pretty lucky.
Yeah, even a blind squirrel finds a nut, right?
Well, I always say it's a blind pig, but a blind squirrel does the same thing. Yeah. But anyway, so you worked with a lot of landscape architects. I read something in some of the things about you. Is that something you still do today, or do you guys design most of your work in-house?
I think that is a great resource for the business that comes to us. And I'm going to tell you, the landscape architects and designers that I work with, they don't have the perfect answer because they don't understand swimming pools as much as I do.
Right.
And so all of the designers I work with or architects that I work with, they will put a placeholder on the plans, and then they will give it to me to make my modifications and create some artistic ideas. And it's not that it's that complicated. It's just you've done it enough times, you know what works and what doesn't work. And it's pretty easy to sketch that up. They're not sensitive to the Baja Shelf as an example, or best placement for a spa, or the best square footage for a spa. There is a magical number in all these different items I just laid out that if you keep them within some parameters, the spa is an example, if you keep it at 50 square feet, so a 7x7 is pretty much that, 6x8, pretty much that. If you can keep it at that square footage, the spa with a 400,000 BTU heater heats up at a degree a minute. And so the average consumer, if they know it's going to take them under 30 minutes to turn their spa on, and they go to their smartphone and they punch it up and they run down to grab the pizza, by the time they get back, the spa's all heated up, ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's basic things like that are The architects don't necessarily understand, but they understand far more than I do when it comes to the global view of the backyard. How do you get from point A to point B? And you want to go up and have a meditation area where you've got some solitude and you can just go up and reflect and look back at the yard and how all that interacts. You interact with it. It's an important part. If you understand that, you will be very successful in your career in building swimming pools and working with landscape designers because they also recognize that you're the professional and you know what the heck you're doing. So that attracts even more business from their clientele list that they're designing for. I'll give Chuck a call because he's the professional. He'll know more of what to do.
So you collaborate with them on the projects and
Yeah.
they bring their strengths and you bring their strengths and it makes a better product for the client.
It's a great team effort, and I tell that to clients on every job we do. It's a team effort. I'm not, and when we get done with a job, a lot of times I will take progression payments, progression pictures all the way through the job, and we get to the end. And I'll write a nice little thank you note to all the team members that were working on it. The guy that dug the ditches, the guy that ran the gas, the steel guy, or whatever it is, I will write a really nice letter and show them all of these pictures. It's done in an email format, but I will do that. And I also copy the clients in on it because the clients have got a big vested interest in their project. And here they've chosen the right guy that not only takes and gives credit to all the different people that built the job, but he's a top professional. Instead of beating my chest saying this couldn't have happened without me, it's just the opposite. I let everybody know that it couldn't happen without them.
Yeah. Great team makes great projects.
Amen.
One of the things I mentioned was the segment we have, it's called Poolside True Crime. So this is something that you've seen that happened to somebody that, you know, it would be great to tell them, the general homeowners, about so that type of situation doesn't happen to them. So do you have any example you can think of?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. I looked at one last year that the client had hired somebody else to do his job to build his pool, and there was an existing pool that was there. And so that particular builder pulled the pool out and put a new pool back in again. It didn't quite fit in the same hole, it was off center to it. And so there were voids in and around the pool, and there wasn't a proper compaction both on the bottom of the pool when the new pool, before the new pool went in, but then all the way around the pool to make sure that the pool didn't settle and move. And as it turns out, I get called in and the pool had moved. It had lifted and done some different things. And the pool builder didn't take any responsibility for it, which I think is a really big mistake as an industry. If we all throw our hands up and say it's not my fault, you're going to eventually get enough people that are going to get upset and they're going to say, why the hell would I ever build a swimming pool? Nobody in that industry is responsible. So I have had, in that particular situation, I tried to consult as best I could. It didn't make sense to try and initiate, a lawsuit and help the homeowner go after a fellow pool builder. But I did try to mediate between the pool builder and the homeowner and say, listen, there's a proper way to resolve this. You need to get an engineer in here and figure out how to stabilize this pool. We had a project, going back to your question about things to avoid. We had a project that we entered into about a year and a half ago, built a pool. It had a pre-existing pool there. They demoed the pool. The customer was a grading contractor. He graded it all back in, brought the right dirt in, And then we went in and built the swimming pool in that same location. Everything worked out absolutely perfect. Had a zero-edge spa on it, nice standard looking kind of pool, linear design. And the pool, the day the pool got filled, we use a special in-floor main drain, and the plaster, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And so here's the plaster company out there, which is a great plaster company, and one of their men pulled the hydrostatic plug that was on the bottom of the pool, thinking that, well, that's a plug that needed to be opened up for suction or whatever it was. Turns out it was a direct porthole to the bottom of the pool and into the gravel that was under the pool. With that, we filled the pool up. I came back the next day, the pool's down about 2 inches. And I thought, boy, this isn't good. Pools don't settle out in their plumbing 2 inches. So we filled it back up. I fired the pool up, came back the next day. It was a Sunday. And down 2 inches again. And now I'm starting to get a little more concerned. This is not going to end well. Monday happened to be a holiday. It was Labor Day. I put out a panic call to my plaster friend, and on Tuesday morning they sent a diver out, dove in the pool, and sure enough, the porthole was open. They dove down, they put a plug in it, problem solved, except the pool started settling because it had a zero-edge spa. If you're off 1/8 of an inch on a zero-edge job, you're off. Water's going off one corner and not another. We ended up dealing with our insurance company, their insurance company. Didn't cost the homeowner anything. My son and I went in and jackhammered the whole swimming pool out, re-engineered it, put piers underneath it, and put it all back together again. Took us about 3 or 4 months to do it. But today that pool is absolutely flawless. And I tell that story to people. It's happened a couple of times in my career where things have moved, where there's been a problem, and we probably should have taken a little bit different step. This was one that I didn't think was our responsibility, but we're the contractor. At the end of the day, the buck stops here. It's like being the president of the country or something. The buck stopped here, and we had to get it resolved. Do you throw your hands up and walk away and the industry gets a black eye? I've seen enough black eyes where pool builders have gone in, they sold the heck out of themselves. They couldn't finish pools. They leave 20 people without their pools finished, and they move to the next town. I finished that pool. That homeowner still calls me today. He is a building contractor that builds low-cost housing. He builds about 2,000 units a year. He would eat me for breakfast. Instead, he had a tremendous amount of respect for the way that I handled it, knowing that I was only going to get so much insurance money and the rest was out of my pocket. But it was the right thing to do. And I think that was the lesson all of us need to think about. And the customers, as they choose somebody to do a pool construction project for them, make sure that they get somebody that they believe will do the right thing when something comes up, because the nature of construction is crisis management. Things always go wrong. Yep. You crack the guy's driveway, bringing your trucks in the yard. You ding the side of the house, although we haven't done that, but you know what I'm saying. Things go wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
How you handle those things that makes the difference between a good experience or a bad experience. I'm never going to have a pool again because that guy was a jerk and he didn't take care of me, and I think he ripped me off. So does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah, we always get together, we pool builders, especially when I get to Carecraft, we all have a whole a filing cabinet full of our war stories.
Oh, yeah.
And some are funny, some are Oh my God, I'm glad that didn't happen to me, but we share them hopefully to help others in the industry realize that things do go wrong and you got to pay attention every single day. You just can't take your eye off the ball. If you do, sure enough, it's going to smack you right in the face.
Oh yeah, it's a great organization. I know that, you know, I've been with two companies that were involved with the Master Pool Guild, but Carecraft, I think Genesis, I think Tributary, I think, you know, Water Shapes. I mean, all these organizations bring people together, and that's where you get to learn from other people's mistakes and challenges. I mean, because otherwise, it's an expensive education to learn on your own. It's always better to learn from somebody else's situation. So,
I tell the story. I'm a high school dropout, right? But I've started 6 different businesses, and I've had this wonderful, stellar career. And I paid for my education along the way. Trust me, it wasn't. I sent my kid off to the University of Colorado. He got a great education, cost a lot of money. My education was out in the world, and I paid for it as I went along.
it
And,
costs a
and
lot.
that's okay. As long as you learn your lesson, it was a good experience. When I joined Carecraft,
You were one
there
of the founding members, weren't you?
now I was not quite a founding member, but I was right there on the opening day, so to speak. Um, there was 13 members. Of the 13 members, I am the last original member that hasn't sold his business to somebody. Of that 13. Frank Fodia of Year Round Pools in South Carolina, Hilton Head. He had just sold his company. Lou Akins was one of the members. They were there before me. But we had our first gathering in a hotel room in Las Vegas. There was 7 of us in the room, and we had to call in for a couple extra chairs because guys were sitting on the end of the bed. And Lou Akins and I got up and we talked about building high-end custom pools, and I had a colored drawing that everybody was in awe of. And here's this young 29-year-old kid that's talking about, how to build a swimming pool off this pretty colored picture. And it today we have, I think there's about 450 members of Carecraft.
Yeah.
So to go from 13 to where we are now, it's a great organization. Greg Howard has done a phenomenal job with building a good team and a great group of people that are members.
Wow, I didn't know Carecraft was that big. I've heard of it in passing, but that's
Well,
awesome.
we don't need to beat the drum. And Master Pool's a great organization. They limited their membership, I think it was to 100. United Pool Guild, they're constantly trying to build their organization. They're good competitors of ours. And then we have Carecraft.
Yeah.
Awesome. Real quick, I want to do a little segment. We've never done this before, but I'm kind of curious with your perspective on things. It's called Design Hall of Fame. And I just want you to name off 3 features that you would put in a ultimate backyard if it had no budget limit. Just 3 features, though. Only 3.
When you say 3 features, are you referring to any element in the backyard, not necessarily the swimming pool?
Yes. Yeah, not you. I guess you. Yeah, let's just stay away from the swimming pool because obviously, like negative edge, knife hit.
Yeah,
Let's just do features. Yeah, just features.
I think the greatest success we've had in backyard development has a couple of real key elements. The pavilion is a really important element. In a pavilion, typically that's a solid roof as opposed to a pergola, which is more of a lattice roof. We saw a lot of that in the 70s and then the 80s. And then as of recent, the last 20 years, the pavilion has been a strong feature to have in the backyard because not only are you drawn into the backyard because the swimming pool's there, but you now have a whole entertainment center. You have the barbecue, you have a wet bar, you have a fireplace, you have a TV center, you have a sound system, open beam ceiling. All of these things are really, really a wonderful add-on, and I'm going to tell you probably 50% of the projects we build have a pavilion in them. The other fun element to have in the backyard, which isn't a very costly element, but it's a great gathering center, is a fire pit.
Oh yeah.
And in the fire pit, you're running a gas line already to feed your pool heater. You're running a gas line to the barbecue and maybe a fireplace in the pavilion. And over at another corner of the yard, you have this conversation area with a fire pit on it. And so that is an added plus. We're seeing in the landscape end of what we're doing, artificial grass has just exploded here on the West Coast. Part of it is water consumption and trying to battle against, you're building these things in the backyard that consume a lot of water. Whether they do or not is a different argument, but you and I know, I mean, it's such a misnomer, but regardless, having the artificial grass makes for a very clean installation, especially with today. With so many of our projects, the grass comes right up to the swimming pool coping.
Yep.
And how artistic is that to have decking and part of that kind of an asymmetrical design, and then you've got this artificial grass that comes up to it that's clean and neat. You'd never have to edge it or mow it. You're not getting grass in the pool. It's a great combination. Bocce courts, we see a lot of bocce courts in our projects, which is a fun, being close to Napa. People in Northern California enjoy glass of wine, you're in the backyard, you're entertaining, you got a bocce court, you're playing bocce ball with a glass in one hand and a ball. Lighting is so critical. I can't say enough about low voltage lighting around the backyard. In the old days, the swimming pool had one 500-watt bulb at one end underneath the diving board at the deep end. It usually was shining back at the house. So when you looked out to the pool, you were being blinded by this headlight of a car coming at you.
I called it Cyclops.
Yeah. Yes, Cyclops. Today, you'll never see where the lights are at in our pools, and our average pool has 6 lights in them.
Right.
And that's because of LED, low voltage, just the latest generation of LED lights that are out tie in both with the landscaping and the swimming pool. The attendant, which is a control system, will talk to the pool lights, will talk to the yard landscape lights. If they are of a high enough level, they also have colored LED in those lights, both in the pool and out of the pool. And now you can play music to it and have the yard come, that's kind of a fluff type of a thing. But, there's people that go out, and especially in my town here, that go out and spend $1 million on a friggin' car, get one of these Italian, whatever they call them. My neighbor across the street has one, right? And I built him a pool, by the way, too. But, everybody, Lou Aiken said something to me years and years and years ago, and he said, Chuck, you're never going to sell a $100,000 pool if you're only asking $30,000 for it. And as I came back from Texas after spending time with him, I started letting that sink in. And that is that you're not doing justice to the client if you don't expose them to all the different features and amenities that they can build in their backyard, whether it's a pavilion, whether it's a fire pit, or a barbecue, or a bocce court, or artificial grass, or paving, or the swimming pool with all of its features. You need to show that and then let them decide how big their budget is or isn't and how they want to go about doing it, or maybe do it in phases. We do a lot of jobs where we're doing phase one is the pool, phase two is the pavilion. But we put in all the utilities and the anchoring devices and so forth for the pavilion are put in when the decks are poured.
Yeah. Makes for an awesome environment. We create all those things that people can enjoy. So it's about all making memories in that backyard. With all those things, you can make a lot of great memories.
It's important. I think that's what's really allowed the pool industry to be as successful as it is, because it's a very family-oriented type of commodity. It's something that the whole family can enjoy and extended families and friends come over. When our twins were growing up here in the house, every weekend we'd have some sports team event in our backyard. And I told my wife, I don't care how much we spend on sodas and beer and hot dogs and hamburgers and all the rest of it, doesn't matter. It's the fact that we have everybody collectively coming to our house and enjoying this backyard.
I'm wondering, is that a reason why? Because like we've talked to many pool professionals, and a lot of them, like you said, they sell pools or build pools, and they don't have one. And you having one, I like that. Is there an aspect of water? Like we talk about blue mind theory and stuff like that sometimes, but is there, like, with your relationship with water, what is it about water to you that, I don't know, makes you love having a pool besides just having it in your backyard? Is there anything like your childhood where you have like good memories with was he on the path of hiking and all that kind of stuff?
Muir Woods.
Yeah, Muir Woods. Is there
So he looked into your history and found out that you were a Boy Scout and you did a lot of hiking, which that's a family thing that we're into.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's.
I'm just trying to, yeah. Go ahead.
I'll tell you the story. Back in 2000, I started a company called Aquatic Environments, and it reminded me very much of the swimming pool industry in its infant stage back in the 50s. And this had to do with aquatic remediation. It had to do with building water features. It had to do with managing lakes, harvesting lakes. It was an extremely interesting business. The water elements are all around us, and most people don't take note of it. I, as a pool builder, didn't take note of all the other water elements that are around us. And so, to answer your question, I think water is a very soothing element that we have that is part of us. It's part of our inner soul. Whether you go up hiking in the Sierras on the John Muir Trail, or you sit down next to a lake, or you go to the ocean and hear the ocean roar. All of those things are so calming to us. Where did that start with me? Is my dad got in the pool business when I was 5 years old. I'm 75 years old now. So it started a very, very long time ago, whether I realized it or not, but through osmosis, just being around it, I started absorbing all of this water element stuff. 16 years old, I'm out cleaning pools and creating my first business that was how to take care of this water element. Um, I, for me, I'll always have a swimming pool. I had a pool. Our family did. My dad built a pool for us early on, and we've always had a swimming pool at our houses. I even when I had a house that didn't have a swimming pool, I built a hot tub for it. So having water around you is a very soothing, relaxing element to immerse yourself into. And it's just, I think it's something that everybody can relate to. Does it take us back to birth? I don't know. Is there something that's so clever that I could say about it that, we're all part of water and we all came from the ocean? I don't know. But I'm going to tell you that it is so peaceful for my soul when I go hiking in the Sierras, when I go to the ocean. We go to Hawaii or go down to Carmel and you're standing out on the beach and your toes are in the surf and you're just watching the waves come in. There's just something calming about that. So you build a swimming pool in your backyard, you put some water features on it that have water tumbling or spilling or something visual. And you go out in your backyard every afternoon and you just sit there and relax. Um, we are so lucky in the swimming pool industry to have the craft that we do and a business sense to be able to go off and do this for people. I'm blessed. I am so blessed. And all of my friends that I grew up with are all retired, right? And they go, well, Chuck, when are you going to retire? I go, I've been retired all these years. I love what I do. And people pay me for it. Isn't that crazy?
It's a great thing. So
It's a very good thing.
my goal is to keep doing it when I'm 75 years old as well. So
yeah, well, I didn't have much choice back then because you didn't leave your kid home, and it was okay, Chucky, you can jump in the truck. We're going to go to work, and well, I guess so. I didn't know any better. Yeah, I'm glad he did it. I miss my dad dearly. I lost him when I was 18, and it was right at that fork in the road when life starts developing for you, and you get out in the world and discover who you are. And that moment was lost. I had an uncle of mine who kind of took. And moved in as my surrogate father and coached me and did a whole bunch of stuff. And he was in the pool business. We became partners for 10 years. George Marcotte, he was a great, wonderful, wonderful man. And, as a young person growing up, especially in the pool industry, I can honestly say this to everybody that's listening to this. It's really important that you align with a mentor, somebody that's been down the road a little further than you, that's in this industry, that's willing to take an interest in your career, to kind of coach you and show you a little bit of the ropes. I've done it for many, many people over the years. I'll continue doing it till the last thing I do on earth. And I get to do it with my son. How lucky am I?
yeah. I got one more question. So it didn't come up in the process, but I think I'm sure there's an interesting story behind it. So how did you come up with the name Creative Environments in 1979?
Yeah, that is a great question, actually, and thank you for saving that towards the end of all of this. Um, there was this moment. So we're in the late 70s. I was starting up pools for various pool builders, and they were all pools by this guy or ABC Pools or whatever pools. But pools was part of the name of their company.
Right.
And I was on this one particular builder. He was an upscale builder in our area, and he just didn't take care of his customer. And I was out there, the pool wasn't finished, and I was out there as a favor to the client to clean up their backyard and their pool. And I thought, how terrible of this guy to do this. And so when it came my opportunity to think of a brand name for the company, I always remembered that you don't want to necessarily say Pools by Chuck, because if you ever wanted to sell your business, you're limited to Chuck. Okay. And so I said, that's off the table. And then I thought, well, what is it that I like to do? And I like to create these outdoor environments. Um, and that led me to creative. And I said, well, creative pools in my market was still in business. They've since gone away. So I couldn't do that. And then I started thinking about what other part should come along with that. And if I brought in environment, then that kind of roped in every single thing that you could have in the backyard. And it didn't limit me. And for years, people would say, what do you do? Do you do landscaping? Do you build hot tubs or spas? Do you build pools? And I said, yeah, I do all of that. I have a landscape license and a swimming pool contractor license, so I can build everything in somebody's backyard that they want to have built. And now we get into the modern era, and everybody wants to be artistic and creative and unique and one of a kind, and put a brand name out there that's memorable, that is catchy, that you could relate to. And here I am 46 years later. What the hell was I thinking back then? But I did. It's, 29 years old, and here I come up with this stuff. I don't know.
Well, no one can take that name because you already took it.
Yeah, well, I've always said that I'm an old soul. Okay, and it seems that everything that I have been involved with, I'm usually there first before a lot of people think of it. We were the first ones to start spas up here in Northern California, and we built hot tubs up here before anybody was thinking of that stuff. I just fortunate to have that vision. As I always say, not bad for a high school dropout, right?
Well, you've obviously had a lot of creativity, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's not seen well by the traditional school system.
Well, I always had this saying, I still use it today, and that is, school got in the way of my education.
I like
And
that.
I learned in the world. And if you're a good student of life and you pay attention to what's going on, you're going to survive very well. In the era that I grew up in, there was a lot of common sense. Unfortunately, today, that isn't so prevalent, and you have to work hard at finding those people that have that innate ability. My son, I think, is very fortunate. He has it, but he's getting it through osmosis of being around me, because I drill it into him all the time. Use your head, think about it. What the hell are you thinking? Figure it out. I didn't have anybody telling me how to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you were able to share, so a lot of us can learn from your experiences. And
Thank you.
we really appreciate you coming on here today.
Thank you so much.
So Trey has typically 3 questions that he wants to ask at the end, and I've got one.
Yeah.
So my question is, where do you go for relaxation or inspiration?
Mountains, rivers, streams, water, Hawaii, Europe, traveling, reading. I do a tremendous amount of reading. Inspiration, being around other like-minded people. I love being around people that have been successful at their craft, and whether it's in the pool business or other businesses. In the work that we do, we meet a tremendous amount of very successful people, and I always ask them, what did you do? What was your background? Where'd you come from? How did you get into this? What is it that led you down this road? And they all have very unique stories, and I'm inspired by every one of those, to answer your question.
Awesome.
Well, What's your favorite book?
I don't really read books per se. I had to laugh. My son was bragging to me the other day. He says, Dad, I've already read 13 books this year. I go, 13 books? I don't think I read 13 books my whole life. The one book that was very memorable for me was a book about Steve Jobs.
Okay.
And with that, then my son says, well, Dad, you can get like these podcast kind of books where you can actually pay for a service, and instead of reading it, they talk to you about the book and they tell you the story of the book. So I'm doing one right now on Elon Musk, which I have a great admiration for. And I listen to it sometimes as I'm driving down the road, but that would be my story of books. I do have one book that I remember, and as a matter of fact, Vance Gillette had given me this book, and it was a real simple, basic book. I mean, you could read it in about 2 hours. It reads that quick, and the name of the book is called "Who Moved the Cheese?" and and it basically the sense of the whole book is that every day we wake up and we're dealing with a whole different set of circumstances, and the cheese got moved on us. The cheese is whatever it is that motivates you to get out of bed to go off and do something to get to, whether it's money or a job or whatever it might be. And it's constantly on the move. And so that means you have to wake up every day ready to go hunting and find out who moved the cheese and where it's at. And I always admired that. I thought that was wonderful for him to give that to me. One other book, and this is probably for Eric's benefit, but just recently we lost a very important person in the pool industry, Andy Pansini Jr. And Andy gave me a book that he did with Eric, which was about his family history. And uh, it read very quickly, and I enjoyed it because it reminded me an awful lot of the character that was in my family history coming from northern Italy. So there you go. That's my books.
Do you like movies by any chance? Do you have a favorite movie?
Well, my oldest daughter, who's 44, is a huge Hollywood TV producer.
Oh, wow.
And to the point that she has 4 Emmy Awards for the work that she's done. And she said, Dad, one day she says, Dad, there's 2 things in this world you don't want to know how it's made. And I said, what's that? And she goes, one is sausage and the other is TV. And she says, you don't want to know how it's made. And I kind of relate that over to movies. I enjoyed old movies when I was a kid growing up, Gone with the Wind, Ben-Hur, and all that kind of stuff. Modern movies today aren't as entertaining to me. They seem to have more of a subliminal message in them.
Yep.
And I'm not big, I don't watch TV anymore. I grew up with TV. And here's my daughter, huge. She produced The Voice for 12 seasons.
Oh, wow.
And she's producing this other show with Taylor Sheridan and Blake Sheldon. And I mean, she's got some rock star partners that she's doing stuff with, but it doesn't move the needle for me. I'd rather I'll catch it on Netflix.
I hear you. And then the last question I usually ask is, what would your favorite meal be?
Because of my heritage, about every other Sunday, at least once a month, but every other Sunday, we'd all gather at Grandma's house. And when Grandma had everybody over, it was a big spaghetti dinner. So it was always a big Italian dinner. She made homemade garlic bread, spaghetti with a marinara sauce. And I have to be careful in eating. And by the way, I married an Italian. My wife is full-blooded Italian, and she cooks out of this world. And we have to kind of watch my diet a little bit because as you get older, you like to eat a lot and you put on weight more than you should. But the Italian food, we took our twins to Switzerland and Italy. My dad was born in Switzerland, then we went down to northern Italy, and all the way down through Switzerland and into Italy we ate. And the best food, bar none in the world, was in Italy.
Oh, wow.
Favorite food is Italy, Italian.
That's awesome. I'm supposed to go there after for a honeymoon, so this next summer or something like that.
Are you going there for a honeymoon? That's what part?
We want to see Lake Como and the Vatican. That's like the two main things. Like that's on my list because I'm a Star Wars fan and I'm obsessed with Lake Como, and then the Vatican is very intriguing. So
we were at Lake Como on this tour and we came down.
Oh, that's cool.
And Nico is my world traveler too. He's been to 40 different countries. He just got to Japan. Yeah, I know. And him and his mom, my wife, set up this trip. And so he planned all these different places that we would go to. We were at Lake Como, but we were across from the town of Como in a really private little village up in the hills that looked down. And we had this wonderful bungalow. It was our twins, the wife and I. And I mean, it was as romantic and awesome as it can possibly be. You want to get in touch with me, email me, and I'll give you the information of that place because it was, and it was off the beaten path and it wasn't touristy. We had to walk down the hill. It was about 2 miles down the hill, and you catch a water taxi, which is just a big bus on the water. And we shot across to Bellagio. We shot across to the little town of Como. It is awesome. Awesome.
I'll take you up on that. Thank you so much.
I'd love to turn you on to it and give you a few high points of what we did. So fun stuff.
Oh yeah. And thank you for coming on. It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
Oh, well, to me, it's really important that we pass this on to future generations. I remember years ago, I had a buddy of mine who used to work for Anthony Pools, and he started his own pool company, and I was using him to help mentor me, and I scolded him. I said, you have all this knowledge of the pool industry, and you need to be spreading this around. You're getting to the end of your career. You should be talking to other young pool builders coming up to teach them. And he, like people of that generation, were more fearful that if I helped somebody that's close to me, next thing you know, they're going to get all the business and I'm going to starve. And I kind of get that. Yeah. But at the same time, I think it's really important that we inspire other people around us to be great at this craft of building swimming pools. And to me, it was really, really important. Thank you for the opportunity to come in and talk to you. I love doing this, and we'll do it anytime you got a subject you want to hear about. I'd love to talk to you about it. Okay.
Well, thank you for giving and giving to the future. So
standing on giants' shoulders.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to talking to you some more in the future. But
you got it. I appreciate you asking.
You guys take care. Have a good night.